Okay, I'm sick and tired of the internet being such a fake place. You think for 1 second that I'm embarrassed to have a Skylander shelf in my room? You are absolutely mistaken. I am proud to be who I am. Anyways, I've had this Skylander shelf for a little while now, and I have not played the game in a long time. So that's what I'm doing now, because this game is absolutely awesome, and I'm sure lots of you played it when you were kids. You were hyped, you were asking for Skylanders for Christmas, your birthdays. I know I was. I've got the shelf to prove it. Let me pause for a sec. In all seriousness, Skylanders was a game so ahead of its time, and I couldn't be more excited to be smashing down toys on my frickin' portal of power to go save the world. So let's get right into this masterpiece of gaming culture. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. What a game. We start our adventure off by meeting our decapitated head friend Eon, and he tells us that Skylands is in danger, and of course it's our job to save the world. Shortly after, we start off our first mission on Shattered Island. First mission, I don't know who we lead with. I mean, we'll go with the classic. I throw down trigger happy and we begin our first mission through Skylands. We make our way through and are sure to help ourselves to as much free shit as possible. The townsfolk don't seem too bothered that I've helped myself to a bunch of their shit. Weeza. Rizzo and Weeza, these all sound like rappers. I make my way through the Shattered Village, finding some valuable treasure along the way. It's funny that you get these soul gems and it literally asks if you want to watch an advertisement for why you should buy that Skylander after. Shortly after, we find the source of the minor issue the town is facing. Wasting no time, we make it to the end of the island and find the useless royal family somehow not getting completely obliterated by this enormous tornado. It takes all of 30 seconds to save them before we return to safety. Shortly after, we're greeted with a cutscene explaining why the world has gone to complete shit and how we can save it. Our main objective in this game is to rebuild the Core of Light and defeat the worst case of small man syndrome I've ever seen, chaos. We finally get back into the game and our next objective is to rescue the girl that Flynn should not be allowed within 30 yards of. Her name is Callie. Did that sheep just kill itself? We set out for Perilous Pastures to begin our search for Callie. We fight a few enemies, solve a few extremely difficult puzzles, and test our locksmith abilities. And it's not long before we rescue Callie and head back to the ruins. Upon returning, I spend entirely too long clearing this bramble away before we're given our next mission, to acquire the Eternal Air Source. We can't get there quite yet as our flimsy balloon isn't powerful enough to get us through a massive tornado. Big shocker there. We first have to go steal a magical propeller from the elf men in order to get to the Eternal Air Source. We arrive at the Sky Schooner docks in order to start our quest for the propeller. We make our way through an admittedly uneventful level, shooting down lots of airships along the way. What would we have done if that ship didn't just go directly through the gate there? Would the entire game have ended if it didn't perfectly take out the gate for us? We body some more elf men out of the way and soon we meet another side character, Persephone. I make my way a bit further and finally the golden propeller reveals itself to us. Will we not damage the propeller we're here to get by, like, shooting rocks at it, though? We miraculously keep the propeller intact as we successfully steal it and head back to the ruins. I guess we can get upgrades now. That's pretty cool. Since we rescued Persephone, we now have access to the upgrade station where we can significantly upgrade the power of our little plastic toys. The next item on our list is to fly to the Stormy Stronghold so we can acquire the Eternal Air Source, the first step required to rebuild the Core of Light. I switch to my boy Double Trouble and we make our way around the stronghold destroying pylons to dispel this massive tornado. There are 4 total pylons to deactivate and it only takes a couple of minutes until we reach them all and reveal the location of the Eternal Air Source. I meet some new enemies on my way to the Air Source, but we aren't discouraged one bit. I make it to the top and am forced to fight through quite a few enemies before the Air Source is claimed and the level is complete. Let's go. Air Source complete. We definitely have enough to do some upgrades now too. We're rewarded with another cutscene and are shown Chaos, who's extremely pissed that we stole his Air Source. That motherfucker blew the Core of Light up so easily last time, like, realistically, he could just do it again. We are then unfortunately graced with meeting Gurgle Finn, one of the more irritating characters in this entire game. If it were up to me, this asshole would stay in this cage forever, but unfortunately we have to break him out. After listening to him spew his nonsense, we make a beeline for the upgrade station to improve Whirlwind. We give ourselves a few upgrades before we're forced to go back and interact with Gurgle Finn. Our next mission is to head to Oil Spill Island to assist in freeing Gurgle Finn's people. Straight to Bangladesh. Let's go. This level is actually quite forgettable at the end of the day, with a few easy puzzles and enemy fights in between the fish freeing. After a little while, we chuck a bomb into the refinery and Chernobyl the whole island before escaping with the freed fish. It takes all of 2 seconds before Gurglefin immediately gets on my last nerve. Guy just made us save his entire home from a bunch of oil miners, and then he comes to our home and sets up his own oil donkey. That's some pretty fucked up logic by the fish people. Moving past that, our next order of business is to head to Darkwater Cove to acquire the Twin Spouts, an item which will be used to house the eternal water source. We're quickly forced to dispose of some enemies and solve some more puzzles before we make it into the pirate temple. We acquire the Twin Spouts before attempting to escape the cove. We are not out of the woods yet, as we have to open up the gate for ourselves before we're permitted to leave. I don't understand why we couldn't just fly here in Flynn's balloon, but oh well. Shut up, Gurglefin. With the Twin Spouts placed back in the Core of Light, it's time to head to Leviathan Lagoon to retrieve the eternal water source. In order to do this, we have to bring 4 statues to the water source shrine. I take a slight detour through an elemental gate and have quite the time getting a present back from Puss in Boots after he took up methamphetamine. I mean, seriously, dude, look at this guy. How the hell am I supposed to get this guy? We're so freaking slow. I finally smarten up and choose a faster Skylander, and we take out this abomination and claim our new hat. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to deal with quite a few more of these guys before the level is over. The pirates try to escape with the last statue, but we sink their ship and claim the statue for ourselves. We make it to the shrine and summon the eternal water source. Our happiness is short-lived as the source is eaten by a Leviathan and chaos is waiting for us in its stomach. This starts our very first legitimate boss fight of the game. In this fight, we have to take on 3 evil versions of water Skylanders, the first being Zap. I make relatively short work of Zap, and next we're on to dodging these extremely low-resolution sharks. We clear the first stage with 0 issues. Stage 2 begins and we have to face Gil Grunt. I take a little more damage this time around, but we are still able to take him out very easily. I yet again manage to dodge all the sharks as we move on to phase 3. Next up is Slam Bam, and this man does a lot of damage if you get too close, and I definitely learned that the hard way. Oh shit, he does a ton of damage. Ah! Oh fuck! I decide it's in my best interest to take him out from a distance. We get extremely close to our first death, but manage to take Slam Bam out. Oh, that was way too close. In the last phase of this fight, we need to take on all 3 evil Skylanders at once. We get sniped by Gil Grunt almost right away and suffer the first death of the run. God damn it, dude. I sub in Whirlwind and we make pretty short work of the 3 enemies. Chaos flees and we're free to claim the eternal water source for ourselves. After returning to the ruins, we're instructed to go investigate a disturbance at the beach. I first head to the upgrade station and purchase a few improvements for our guy Whamshell. I head down to the beach and find this chubby robot sitting here begging me to feed him clams. He ends up turning the clams into bombs somehow, and incredibly that's just what we needed to clear the rubble blocking this cave. We're introduced to another side character, Diggs, and he offers to take us to the Crystal Eye Castle to retrieve the Crystal Eye, our next piece to restoring the Core of Light. We arrive to the castle and find a large quantity of Cyclopses waiting for us. It takes all of 2 seconds for Diggs to get completely obliterated, so fortunately we don't have to listen to him anymore. Honestly, kind of happy that happened. That guy talked way too slow and way too much. I worked my way throughout the castle, completing various puzzles along the way. Embarrassingly, this puzzle through the elemental gate took about 40 minutes of hair pulling before I was finally able to figure it out. We eventually make it to the first of 2 towers we need to destroy in order to gain access to the castle. Upon entering the tower, we're greeted with lots of angry little men and we're forced to fight them off before we can collapse the tower. After another couple of minutes, we make it to the second tower and begin fighting off the enemies inside. After defeating the green men, we destroy the second tower. I swear on my portal of power, the date I filmed this and the mission we just did was a 100% complete coincidence. Destroy the 2 towers. All I'm saying is it just said destroy the 2 towers. I am currently filming this on September 11th. Timing is a beautiful thing, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? After a little more fighting, we finally make it into the main castle. We need to fight numerous waves of enemies inside, and I was definitely a little underprepared bringing in a low-level Trigger Happy. After Trigger Happy dies, I switch back to Sunburn and we take out the rest of the enemies with relative ease and claim the Crystal Eye for ourselves. Somehow, Diggs isn't 6 feet under and we're forced to bring him back to the ruins with us. Once we return, I make a quick trip to Persephone to upgrade Bash a whole lot. We're now feeling adequately prepared and it's time to acquire the Eternal Earth Source from the creatively named Stone Town. We can see that the Eternal Source has turned itself into a golem from Clash of Clans and it's throwing quite a sizable tantrum. Our plan is to fight our way through the Cyclops outpost in order to reach Stone Town and take down the Earth Source. Bash has become pretty OP at this point, so making it through the outpost is an absolute cakewalk. Shortly after, we find the golem and begin our boss fight against it. The plan is quite simple for this one: avoid its attacks and shank it as much as possible while it's vulnerable. The Earth Source doesn't like this plan very much and we begin phase 2. I switch back into Bash and my new plan takes effect. This plan consists of sitting back and shooting rocks at the golem. It's not long until we've pissed it off just enough to send it into phase 3. We frantically dodge its attacks, and after a minute we take out the golem and suffer some extreme heartbreak. There we go. Easy, easy, easy. No! No, there was so much loot and XP there, dude. Why? Unfortunately, we can't purchase upgrades with the Earth Source, so it's basically worthless. I take it anyways and head back to the ruins. Once we're back, this strange man-child pops out of the ground, and it's safe to assume he's going to be our guide to the next Eternal Source. Of course, we can't just go and take the Eternal Life Source right away, so we need to gather the Seeds of Life first. Arbo magically grows a massive beanstalk, and we ride it all the way to Treetop Terrace. Our goal here is to make it to the end of the map and collect the Seeds of Life. Quite simple, really. Of course, there are lots more angry little men in our way, and we have to fight our way through. We did in fact get close to another death along the way, but luckily managed to avoid it. There's some relatively uneventful platforming and fights in our way before we make it to the end and snatch the Seeds of Life. We get back to the ruins, and Arbo has already planted the seeds. However, the annoying ass sheep are eating all of the apples. We need to knock the sheep away long enough for the apples to grow so we can collect them for Arbo. It would be nice if someone around here did some of these annoying tasks for themselves, but I guess it wouldn't be a very interesting game if that were the case. After far too long, we collect the desired amount of apples and we can finally progress. Arbo tells us that the life source is hidden inside a giant acorn, and our next mission is to find said acorn. First, we head back to Persephone and make Bash even more broken. We talk to Arbo again and set off to the Falling Forest. We're greeted with a cutscene first, and we can see Chaos clearly has something in store for us in the forest. The trolls have wasted no time in looking for the life source, and they're chopping down all the trees. Too bad the Lorax isn't a Skylander, or else this level would be incredibly easy. I decide to give Bash a break and switch over to Trigger Happy for the time being. I focus on leveling up Trigger Happy a bunch so he actually might stand a chance in the boss fight. That plan lasts all of 2 seconds as I end up switching to a new Skylander Camo. I work my way through some easy enemies, and it's not long before we find the acorn and are ambushed by Chaos. I get a bit cocky before the fight. Are we gonna use a level 1 Skylander for the boss fight? Of course we are. Of course we are. What do you think I am? Our first task is to take down an evil version of Zook. We dodge his slow, predictable attacks and he falls very quickly. The next phase sees us dodging these weird green snails while having to destroy red ones in order to not get trapped. With a little bit of patience, we clear this phase easily and are on to the next evil Skylander, Stealth Elf. She's much faster and more aggressive, so we have to try and keep our distance and attack her from range. She hits us a few times, but we take her out shortly after. The next phase of snails is a bit too easy, and it's not long before we're facing off against the third evil Skylander, Stump Smash. I definitely have a bit more trouble with this guy, but we managed to barely take him out. The final phase of snails is a bit more hectic, but we clear it no problem. Next up is the final phase where we have to fight all 3 evil minions at once. This one made me a little nervous, and for good reason. I'm luckily able to isolate Stealth Elf and take her out first. I try to dodge frantic attacks and take out Zook, but this proves to be easier said than done. I eventually break free and am able to take out Zook. With Stump Smash all by himself, it's only a few seconds until he falls and we're free to claim the Eternal Life Source. Upon returning to the ruins, we're once again introduced to yet another side character who is aptly named General Robot. We can guess the next Eternal Source we're after is Tech, and General Robot tells us that we need to acquire the golden gear first. The trolls are guarding it closely and we have to travel to the troll warehouse to retrieve it. Upon arrival, we are reintroduced to Snuckles, a strange badger creature we saved from Shattered Island earlier. It's at this point where the laziness of the side characters starts to get to me. You mean I'll go get the golden gear while you do nothing? We do a few lock puzzles and are acquainted with one of my favorite enemies in this entire game. They literally just took the design of Puss in Boots and like put them on 30 years of hard meth usage, and that is who they used for the design of that specific enemy. We spot the golden gear, but unfortunately it's on the other side of a minefield, so we're gonna have to find a map of the field so we can avoid getting exploded. We defeat some more enemies and open some more locks, and it's not long until we find the first piece of the map. We solve a few more puzzles and defeat a few more meth heads before completing the map and returning to the minefield. We make our way through and acquire the golden gear. We get yet another cutscene with Chaos, and perhaps we should have skipped over this one. Whoa. After scrubbing our eyes clean, we're on to the next mission, which is finding some rare green goo. Who could have possibly guessed that the rare goo would be found at a location called the Goo Factory? We talk to General Robot again, and he shoots us off to the factory. We meet Snuckles there, and our first task is to find the Mabu captain to assist him in taking over the factory. We find him very quickly, and he tells us we need to find a Mega Bomb in order to gain access to the factory. We make our way up to the stash of Mega Bombs, and we can now start blowing shit up. We grab ourselves a bomb and roll it all the way down to the main entrance. Our mission inside is to raise all 3 flags in order to signal the capture of the factories. I decided to go with Trigger Happy for this part of the mission as he's pretty OP at this point. After a bunch of 200 IQ fighting, we get the first flag up. Second and third flags follow shortly after, and we capture the factories and claim the goo. The general's hyped to see the goo, and we head off to upgrade Trigger Happy a ton before continuing the story. We go back to General Robot and head to the battlefield to search for the Eternal Tech Source. Our boy Snuckles is there and he tells us the command team is trapped and we must go save them. I make my way through the trenches, fighting tons of enemies along the way. After a decent amount of time, we connect with the command team and they tell us we have to bomb our way into the base. Ghost Roaster gets to the bomb quickly and we're soon faced with the troll's secret weapon, this bootleg tank. We cheese the shit out of this fight and in no time the tech source is ours. We're rewarded with another chaos cutscene before we can see Persephone once again to upgrade Ghost Roaster. We purchase a few upgrades before swiftly heading to the beach to meet our next side character, T-Bone. I help him find the rest of his body, and as thanks he agrees to take us to the crawling catacombs to acquire the magical mask to house the eternal undead source. This place is one of the most boring levels in the game, unfortunately, and after a bunch of enemy fighting we acquire the skull mask. T-Bone finds us once more and we're on our way back to the ruins. The next order of business is to acquire the skeleton key, a vital item required to gain access to the creepy citadel, which is the location of the eternal undead source. I head alongside my boy T-Bone and we're on our way to finding the skeleton key. We're introduced to some zombie friends who can only be hurt by fire, so Sunburn is going to be our best friend in this level. Like you were going to help anyways, T-Bone. Sunburn makes light work of our enemies, and after some masterful puzzle solving and treasure chest opening, it's not long before we find ourselves in the final room of enemies. I destroy everything in sight and go on to claim the skeleton key. All that just for the key to spawn out of the ground? Seriously? T-Bone has some fun with the key before we can take it back to the ruins. I fully thought he was going to attach that to his crotch and it was going to be his hog. Hugo disapproves of T-Bone's antics, so we're forced to leave for the creepy citadel immediately. T-Bone inserts the key and we're finally able to begin our search for the undead source. I make my way towards the castle, completing some crystal puzzles along the way. Shortly after, we make it to the front door and are met with a lock goblin. After a respectable 16 moves, we solve the puzzle and gain access to the citadel. After entering, I switch to Ghost Roaster as the undead element has an advantage inside. I make extremely short work of the enemies, and after a few more puzzles, I make it to the undead gateway. Of course, I know I have a boss fight with Chaos here, and I was definitely in for a treat. The first minion we faced is Ghost Roaster himself, and this went extremely poorly. Oh, god damn it. I take him out barely, but we're left with very minimal health. The next phase sees us dodging lasers, but this is absolutely no issue whatsoever. Yeah, we kind of need someone with a... I don't know how we expected to do that with a melee attacker. The next minion is Chop Chop, and I last about 2 seconds with Ghost Roaster, so I'm forced to switch to Sunburn. Sunburn is a much better option, and after some patience, Chop Chop is defeated. The next phase of lasers is basically the same as the first, right up until the end when I decide to walk into a bunch for some reason. The last evil Skylander is Hex. She has some pretty versatile attacks, so I have a few small issues with her, but nothing too crazy. Oh my god, we just got cooked by Hex. I go with Trigger Happy and spam my Gatling gun at Hex until she too is defeated. The last phase of lasers is also a snooze fest, so that means it's time to face all 3 minions at once. I was also severely underprepared for this onslaught, so Trigger Happy falls as well. God damn it, man. We're getting cooked. I switch to Camo and decide to go for Ghost Roaster first. Next is Chop Chop, and he's pretty easy to KO as well. Okay, oh, we just did a backflip on his ass. With Hex all alone, we take her out and laugh Chaos out of the room before claiming the eternal undead source. At this point, we're finally given access to the railroad area, and a familiar face is waiting for us there. Diggs tells us that a bunch of the moles have been trapped in the caves while looking for the Crucible of the Ages, another key component for the Coral Light. We do not care, Diggs. I promise you, we do not care. After some upgrades, we go with Diggs anyways and set out for the mines. Somehow, Blobbers is overseeing the miners, and asks us to save 7 of them. Why couldn't you have done this, Blobbers? This isn't a skill exclusive to Skylanders here, buddy. It's not long before we already save the miners 1 and 2. Number 3 is up on this ledge about to jump, but luckily we make it up to him just in time. Miners 4 and 5 are quite easy, 6 is no problem either, and for some unknown reason I have trouble with 7. Oh, come on. Really? But even he cannot hide from me forever. You know what, Diggs? I respect it. Diggs then fakes an injury, so we'll push him out of the mines in a cart. We escape with the Crucible and head back to the ruins. We get another cutscene with Chaos and Glumshanks, and after they're done talking, we can head to the Lava Lakes Railway, the location of the Eternal Fire Source. I go with Ghost Roaster so that we can move around significantly faster. I make it in further, and for some reason, this happens. Oh my god. We just got destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. I switch into my secret weapon for pretty much the rest of this game, Double Trouble. It helps me make it through this segment of the mines before I switch back to Bash for faster movement. We make it to the lakes and find Glumshanks in the flesh screwing with our tracks. It takes some puzzling, but we repair the tracks and head to the Eternal Fire Source. Of course, it's a trap and we're faced with yet another boss fight against Chaos. His first minion is Flameslinger, and Double Trouble absolutely annihilates him. There we go, Double Trouble for the fucking win. The fire dodging phase is extremely easy as we survive it without taking a hit. Our next enemy is Sunburn and we melt him almost as fast as Flameslinger. I'll skip over this next phase again because it's quite uneventful, and before we know it we're on to the third minion Eruptor. And honestly, just look at how broken Double Trouble is. Ooh. Jeez, Double Trouble is so good for this, what the hell. And just like that, we're on to fighting all three at once. This went about as well as Eruptor, as it's mere seconds before all three are taken out and we're free to claim the Eternal Fire Source. The very last source we need to acquire is the Eternal Magic Source, and it turns out some strange statue on the water is going to help us acquire it. The Archean Weapon Master asks us to cross the chain of time so we can find the Quicksilver, another item needed for the Core of Light. I head to the appropriately named Quicksilver Vault in order to begin my search for the Quicksilver. A little side note here, I think this level has some of, if not the absolute best map design in this entire game. I push my way through the main gate and it's not long before we get eyes on the Quicksilver. In order to access the Quicksilver, we need to activate 3 beams which unlock the vault. We fight our way through lots of enemies and finally make it to the first puzzle. This one is no trouble at all and we solve it in a matter of seconds. I immediately make it to the second puzzle and it takes a little bit more time than the first, but this too is no match for my humongous brain. I move on to the third, which is easier than the second for some reason, and this means that the Quicksilver vault is unlocked and we can go steal the Quicksilver for ourselves. The Quicksilver gets added to the core and we immediately set out for the Archean Armory. The Archean Armory, some of the greatest video game music of all time, just so you're aware. Upon arrival, we see someone forgot to pay the power bill, so it's up to us to light this place up. We get a sneak peek as to what is probably going on in North Korea, and we set out to find the Eternal Magic Source. I fight my way through a healthy amount of enemies before we get a very fun and memorable part of this game, driving the giant Archean robot. This section of the level is just punching and shooting everything in sight until we get to have a Rock'em Sock'em Robots fight against another giant robot. Our opponent is unfortunately no match for us as we make it through the final gate into the last section of the level. We finally locate the magic source in the Archean Temple, and all we have to do to get it is activate 3 switches. After a very quick, extremely necessary detour, I activate the 3 switches and claim the Eternal Source needed to rebuild the Core of Light. After the core is rebuilt, Chaos retreats to the Outlands, and it's up to us to seek him out in order to ensure he does not destroy the core again.
Robot, I could positively kiss you.
At ease, soldier.
Quite right.
Well, General Robot is a confirmed homophobe. God damn it, Skylanders. I make a pit stop at the upgrade station for the last time, and after that we set out to our final mission at Chaos's lair. Alright, here we go. Final mission. We arrive to the lair of Chaos, and our goal is essentially to break into his castle and assassinate him, I think. I start off with Sunburn and take out as many minions as I can while gathering keys we need to unlock the main gate. I switch back over to whatever Skylander is currently strong in that area to give myself a very unnecessary advantage. I fight off a very healthy amount of enemies while gathering up the 3 keys, and after a few minutes we can open up the main gate to the castle. There's a few more waves of enemies waiting for us, but we push through and are finally able to head to the castle to challenge Chaos. His castle flips over and conveniently reveals a battlefield. After a quick yap sesh from Chaos, the battle finally begins. I start out with Sunburn for some reason before I quickly come to my senses and swap to the MVP Double Trouble. We take out his first minion Zook, and I quickly realize that this battle is going to be a cakewalk. Okay, this is just ridiculously overpowered, man. Come on. Chaos gets pissed off that we're embarrassing him so bad that he calls upon his secret weapon, his Hydra. In this segment of the battle, we have to dodge more simple spells while damaging Chaos at the same time. Luckily, Double Trouble's attack locks onto targets, so we just simply have to hold on to the A button and let the goat do all the work. Chaos finally sends in some evil Skylanders, but they are nowhere near a match for Double Trouble as he disposes of them swiftly. Chaos then straight up feeds his old minions to his new ones and rinse and repeat the last 5 minutes once more. Jeez, Double Trouble is just disgusting. Once again, Double Trouble eviscerates everything, and we continue on bullying Chaos. Chaos again destroys his old minions and they're replaced with 3 more. These 3 go down just as easily as all the others, and it's time for the final phase of this battle. We dodge more spells and do a bit more damage to Chaos as he sends in his final 3 evil Skylander minions. As you can see very clearly by this disgusting gameplay, Hex, Flameslinger, and Gilgrunt are still no remote match for the overpowered GOAT Double Trouble, and this means that it's just us and Chaos now. We simply just go near him while holding A, and it's less than the minute before victory is ours. Alright, well, that was so underwhelming because Double Trouble is just disgustingly overpowered. In all seriousness, this is a great boss fight, and if you're ever playing this game again, I would recommend giving yourself a bit more of a challenge and not using Double Trouble for this fight. Our reward for beating this game is a sizable cutscene involving all of our colorful characters deciding what happens to Chaos. We end up deciding to give him a truly evil punishment that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. Yikes, they sent him right to Africa. And after that, we can finally let the credits roll. That's it, baby. We did it. One of the greatest games ever created of all time ever. Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, all done. Unbelievable game. So revolutionary. The technology with the toys and everything. You get collectibles. Plus you get to play an awesome game. Portal of Power. Give me a break. It's the sickest shit of all time. What a game. What a game.